Chosen one, listen carefully, because what you are about to hear may explain more about your life than anything you have heard in a long time. There is a reason you were led to this message today, and it is not by accident. While most people believe that God works through obvious blessings, sudden breakthroughs, and visible victories, what He is doing in your life right now may look completely different. In fact, if you judge this season only by what you can see, you may misunderstand it entirely. You may feel as though something is being taken from you. Certain doors have closed. Certain people have walked away. Opportunities you expected never arrived. Plans that seemed promising suddenly fell apart. And deep inside, you have wondered why your path has been so different from everyone else's. But what if the very thing you call a loss is actually preparation? What if God is not removing something valuable from your life, but removing something that cannot go where He is taking you? Most people never ask this question. They assume that every closed door is rejection, and every delay is failure. But there is a hidden truth that few understand. Sometimes God's greatest work happens in seasons that feel the most confusing. Sometimes He separates you before He elevates you. Sometimes He empties your hands before He entrusts you with something greater. Chosen one, this is why you must pay attention, because what is happening in your life right now is not merely about changing your circumstances, it is about changing you. God is preparing a version of you that can carry what your current version cannot. He is strengthening parts of your character that no one sees. He is teaching lessons that cannot be learned through comfort. He is building foundations deep enough to support the weight of what is coming next. And the truth is, if everything you prayed for had arrived 6 months ago, 1 year ago, or even 3 years ago, you may not have been ready to sustain it. That is the part most people never hear. The delay was not punishment. The silence was not abandonment. The struggle was not evidence that God forgot you. It was preparation for an assignment larger than you realize. So stay with me until the end, because if you leave now, you may miss the real reason behind everything that has been unfolding in your life. And once you understand it, you may never look at your current season the same way again. Chosen one, if this message has found you today, there is a strong possibility that you have been carrying a weight that very few people truly understand. Not because your struggles have been louder than everyone else's, but because so much of what you have carried has been invisible. There have been seasons when you felt forgotten. You watched people around you move forward while you remained in the same place. You saw doors open for others, while the ones you prayed for stayed firmly shut. You celebrated other people's victories, while quietly wondering why your own breakthrough never seemed to arrive. And perhaps the hardest part was not the waiting itself. It was not knowing why you were waiting. Many people can endure pain when they understand its purpose, but uncertainty creates a different kind of suffering. You asked questions that seemed to have no answers. Why did that opportunity disappear? Why did that relationship end? Why did something that felt so right suddenly fall apart? Why does it seem like others receive in months what you have been praying for over years? These questions have echoed through your mind more times than you can count. And maybe you never said them out loud, because you were trying to stay strong. You were trying to keep your faith. You were trying to believe that everything would eventually make sense. But deep inside, there were moments when confusion became exhausting. There were nights when you felt alone with thoughts you could not explain to anyone. Because the deepest pain is not always rejection. Sometimes the deepest pain is not understanding why you were rejected. It is looking at a closed door and seeing no reason for it. It is watching something leave your life without understanding what purpose that loss could possibly serve. Chosen one, you know what it feels like to be misunderstood. People have looked at your life and assumed they knew your story. They saw your silence and called it weakness. They saw your caution and called it fear. They saw your distance and called it pride. But they never saw the battles you were fighting internally. They never saw the prayers, They never saw the disappointments. They never saw how many times you had to rebuild yourself after life knocked you down. Some people think loneliness means having nobody around you, but you have learned that loneliness can exist even in a crowded room. It can happen when nobody understands what you are carrying. It can happen when you feel different from the people around you but cannot explain why. It can happen when your heart is being pulled towards something greater, while your current reality seems to offer no evidence that it is possible. And then there is the waiting that stretches longer than expected, the waiting that tests your patience, the waiting that forces you to confront fears you did not know existed. At first, you thought the answer was just around the corner. Then weeks became months, months became years, and slowly, the challenge was no longer about receiving what you prayed for. The challenge became protecting your faith while nothing appeared to change. That is a battle many people never see, because outwardly you kept moving, you kept working, you kept showing up, you kept smiling. But inwardly, there were moments when you wondered whether your efforts mattered at all. Moments when you questioned whether anyone noticed. Moments when you felt overlooked, invisible, and forgotten. Yet despite everything, something inside you refused to completely give up, even after disappointments, even after delays, even after unanswered questions. A small part of you kept believing there had to be a reason for all of this. A small part of you kept hoping that one day the pieces would finally connect. And if that sounds like your journey, then understand this. The struggle was never only about what happened to you. It was about what those experiences were doing within you. And before you can understand where God is leading you next, you must first understand why this season has felt so painful in the first place. Chosen one, this is the part that many people never understand. Most people spend years asking why something happened to them, but very few stop to ask what that experience was trying to teach them. Because pain without meaning feels unbearable, but pain with purpose becomes transformation. What if the delays in your life were never meant to destroy your confidence? What if they were meant to build your foundation? The world teaches that progress should be immediate. It tells you that if something is meant for you, it should happen quickly. It tells you that every delay is a sign that something has gone wrong. But God's timing does not operate according to human expectations. There are seasons when movement is happening beneath the surface, long before anything becomes visible above it. A tree does not become strong because of what grows above the ground. Its strength comes from roots that nobody sees. And often, God is more concerned with your roots than your results. This is why not every delay is failure. Some delays are protection, some delays are preparation. Some delays exist because what is coming requires a stronger version of you than the one that exists today. Think about this carefully. If a building is destined to rise higher than the surrounding structures, its foundation must go deeper into the ground. From the outside, that process looks slow. It looks unproductive. It even looks disappointing. Yet without that hidden work, everything built afterward would eventually collapse. The same is true in your life. What you called stagnation may have been construction. What you called silence may have been preparation. What you called abandonment may have been God's way of keeping you focused on a process you could not yet understand. And there is another truth many people struggle to accept. Not every closed door is a loss. Sometimes a closed door is one of the greatest blessings you will ever receive. The difficulty is that we usually recognize this only after enough time has passed. In the moment, a closed door feels painful. It feels personal. It feels unfair. But there are things God can see that you cannot. There are paths that appear promising but lead toward unnecessary pain. There are opportunities that look exciting but carry hidden consequences. There are relationships that feel right in the moment but would slowly pull you away from your purpose. Sometimes God removes a good thing to protect you from a dangerous thing you cannot yet see. And because you cannot see what He sees, you interpret protection as rejection. but they are not the same. Chosen one. Perhaps one of the greatest misunderstandings about hardship is the belief that isolation is always punishment. It is not. Throughout history, preparation often happened in solitude. Before clarity came, there was separation. Before influence came, there was isolation. Before purpose became visible, there was a season of being hidden. The world sees isolation as a setback. God often uses it as a classroom. Because there are lessons that can only be learned when the noise becomes quiet. There are truths that can only be heard when distractions are removed. And there are parts of your character that can only be strengthened when nobody else is there to carry you. This is why you must be careful about how you interpret your current season. The greatest enemy of your destiny is not failure. Many people recover from failure. Many people learn from failure. Many people become stronger because of failure. The greater danger is success arriving before wisdom, success arriving before discipline, success arriving before character, success arriving before readiness, because what comes too early can become a burden instead of a blessing. What arrives before preparation often leaves just as quickly as it came. That is why God is not only interested in giving you something, He is interested in preparing you to sustain it. The delays, the closed doors, the unanswered questions, and even the lonely seasons may all be serving a purpose far greater than you realize. One day you may look back and discover that the moments you once questioned were actually guiding you toward exactly where you were meant to be. And when that understanding comes, you will realize that your story was never falling apart. It was being shaped. Chosen one. There is something important you must understand. The greatest mistake people make during difficult seasons is believing that God's primary goal is to change their circumstances. They pray for a new opportunity, a new relationship, a new financial breakthrough, a new season. And while there is nothing wrong with praying for those things, many fail to realize that God is often doing something even more important. He is changing the person who will eventually step into those blessings. Because a changed circumstance without a changed person rarely produces lasting results. If the person remains the same, they often recreate the same struggles in a different environment. That is why God focuses on transformation before expansion, character before influence, wisdom before increase, depth before visibility. Chosen one, think about your journey. There have been seasons when it felt like people disappeared from your life. Conversations became fewer, relationships shifted. The support you expected was no longer there. At the time, it may have felt like abandonment, but what if it was actually preparation? Sometimes God isolates you so you can finally hear His voice above the noise. When everyone else is speaking, it becomes difficult to recognize His direction. When distractions fill every moment, it becomes difficult to hear what He has been trying to teach you. Solitude is uncomfortable, but growth often begins where distraction ends. There are lessons that crowds cannot teach. There is wisdom that can only be discovered in quiet places. There is clarity that only arrives when the noise fades away. And perhaps that is why this season has felt different. Not because you were forgotten, but because you were being repositioned. There is another truth that many people resist. God sometimes empties your hands before He fills them again. When something leaves your life, your first instinct may be to hold on tighter, to fight for what is slipping away, to demand answers, to resist change. But not everything that leaves is meant to remain. Sometimes God removes what is familiar so you can receive what is necessary. A cup that is already full cannot receive anything new. A life crowded with old attachments often has no room for new assignments. What feels like loss may actually be God creating space. Space for growth, space for wisdom, space for opportunities, space for the future He has prepared. And perhaps the hardest transformation of all involves the ego. Because there are parts of us that want recognition before readiness, visibility before maturity, rewards before responsibility. Yet God often allows seasons that humble us before He elevates us, not to destroy our confidence, but to strengthen our foundation. A tree that grows too quickly without deep roots becomes vulnerable when storms arrive. Likewise, a person who rises without character often falls under the weight of success. This is why God sometimes breaks pride before releasing purpose. He removes false confidence so that true strength can emerge. He teaches dependence before influence, humility before leadership, patience before promotion. Chosen one, this is the hidden work that many people never see. While you have been praying for blessings, God has been preparing the one who will carry those blessings. While you have been asking for doors to open, He has been building the wisdom needed to walk through them. While you have been focusing on what you want Him to change around you, He has been changing what needs to change within you. Because blessings can be received in a moment, but becoming the person capable of sustaining them is a process, and that process is what you are experiencing right now. One day you will look back and realize that the greatest miracle was not what God gave you. The greatest miracle was who He helped you become. Type Amen if you understand that your struggle was not punishment but preparation. Chosen one, there is a question that very few people are willing to ask themselves. If God gave you everything you have been praying for today, would the current version of you be able to sustain it, not receive it, not celebrate it, not enjoy it for a season, but truly sustain it? Because receiving a blessing and maintaining a blessing are two very different things. Many people focus on arrival. God focuses on stewardship. This is one of the reasons why some prayers seem to take longer than expected. It is not always because God is withholding something from you. Sometimes He is preparing you for what you have requested. A child may dream of driving a car, but wisdom understands that desire alone does not create readiness. The responsibility must come first. The maturity must come first. The understanding must come first. Only then can greater freedom be trusted. The same principle applies to every area of life. Influence without wisdom becomes dangerous. Success without character becomes unstable. Growth without discipline becomes difficult to maintain. This is why God often develops the person before expanding the opportunity. Many people pray for larger platforms. God teaches them humility. Many people pray for financial increase. God teaches them stewardship. Many people pray for leadership. God teaches them service. At first, these lessons may seem unrelated to the blessing itself, but in reality, they are preparing the foundation that the blessing will eventually stand upon. Chosen one, growth must come before expansion. A container can only hold what it has been built to contain. If more is poured into it than it can handle, it eventually breaks under the pressure. Likewise, if your responsibilities increase faster than your maturity, the weight can become overwhelming. This is why preparation is not a delay. Preparation is protection. God is not only thinking about what happens when the blessing arrives, He is thinking about what happens years after it arrives. He is concerned with longevity, not just excitement. Sustainability, not just achievement. Purpose, not just possession. There is another truth you must understand. Responsibility always comes before influence. Many people want their voice to carry weight. They want opportunities, recognition, authority, impact. But influence is not simply a reward. It is a responsibility. The greater your influence becomes, the more your decisions affect other people. The greater your opportunities become, the more important your character becomes. The greater your reach becomes, the more necessary wisdom becomes. That is why God often trains people in hidden places before bringing them into visible places. He develops integrity before exposure, faithfulness before promotion, Consistency before recognition, because what is built privately determines what can be trusted publicly. So if you feel like you are still waiting, do not assume that nothing is happening. You may be in one of the most important stages of your journey. The stage where God is preparing you not only to receive more, but to carry more, not only to achieve more, but to manage more, not only to influence more people, but to serve them well. And when the time comes for greater opportunities to arrive, you will understand why the preparation was necessary, because God was never simply trying to bless your life. He was preparing you to become someone capable of handling the responsibility attached to that blessing. Chosen one, there comes a moment in every meaningful journey when the focus must shift. At first, most people pray for blessings. They pray for healing, for provision, for opportunities, for open doors. And there is nothing wrong with these prayers. But as spiritual maturity grows, something begins to change. The question is no longer, what can God do for me? The question becomes, what can God do through me? This is where purpose begins, because purpose is always bigger than personal comfort. It extends beyond your immediate needs. It reaches beyond your own success. It touches lives you may never even meet. Chosen one. Perhaps one of the reasons your preparation has been so intense is because your assignment is not small. Some people are blessed so they can live better. Others are blessed so they can help change the lives of many others. There is a difference. A blessing that ends with you has limited impact. A blessing that flows through you can transform generations. That is why God has been shaping your heart as carefully as He has been shaping your future. He is not only preparing you to receive, He is preparing you to become a source of encouragement, a source of wisdom, a source of hope, a source of stability in a world that often feels uncertain. You may not fully understand it yet, but there are people connected to your future who will benefit from your obedience today. There are individuals who will find strength because you refuse to quit. There are lives that will be influenced because you chose faith over fear. There are opportunities that will exist because you were willing to keep moving forward when giving up seemed easier. This is why your story matters, not because it is perfect, but because it can become proof that transformation is possible. Chosen one, you are being called to become a light, not a light that draws attention to itself, but a light that helps others find their way, a light that brings clarity where there is confusion, a light that reminds people that difficult seasons do not last forever. The world already has enough voices spreading fear. What it needs are people who carry hope, people who carry wisdom, people who carry peace, and perhaps that is part of your calling. You are also being prepared to become a bridge between where people are and where they could be. A bridge between struggle and opportunity. A bridge between confusion and understanding. A bridge between limitation and possibility. Bridges do not exist for themselves. They exist to help others move forward. And that is often how purpose works. It transforms your experiences into something that benefits more than just you. There is another reason your journey carries significance. You may be the person chosen to break patterns that have existed for generations. Patterns of fear, patterns of limitation, patterns of scarcity, patterns that convinced people to settle for less than what was possible. Every family has cycles. Some are healthy, some are destructive. But someone must be willing to create a new path. Someone must be willing to think differently. Someone must be willing to act differently. Perhaps that person is you. This is why your preparation cannot be viewed through a small lens. Your calling is larger than comfort, larger than status, larger than personal achievement. It is connected to impact. It is connected to service. It is connected to purpose. And purpose is always greater than possession. Type 777 if you are ready for the responsibility attached to your calling. Chosen one, after everything you have been through, it is important to understand something. The blessing God is preparing for you is not merely an increase in what you have, it is an increase in who you have become. Many people spend their lives chasing opportunities, resources, influence, and success. Yet they never stop to ask whether they are becoming the kind of person capable of handling those things wisely. God does not simply want to place more into your hands, He wants to strengthen the hands that will carry it. Because true blessing is not measured only by what you receive, it is measured by what you are able to sustain without losing yourself. There are people who gain more and become consumed by pride. There are people who gain influence and forget humility. There are people who achieve success yet lose their peace, their values, and their sense of purpose. That is not the blessing God intends for you. The increase He is preparing is meant to strengthen your life, not weaken your character. It is meant to expand your impact, not inflate your ego. It is meant to deepen your purpose, not distract you from it. This is why your preparation has mattered so much. Because what is coming is not only about having more, it is about becoming more disciplined, more grounded, more wise, more capable of handling greater responsibility. And when that increase arrives, you will begin to understand why certain lessons could not be skipped, why certain delays were necessary, why certain doors remained closed. You will see that God was never simply preparing a blessing for you, He was preparing you for the blessing. The greatest reward is not that your circumstances will change. The greatest reward is that you will be able to step into that new season without abandoning the values, faith, and character that brought you there. That is the kind of blessing that lasts. That is the kind of blessing that creates impact. And that is the kind of blessing God has been preparing you to carry. Chosen one. As this message comes to an end, remember this truth above all else. The greatest evidence that God is working in your life is not found in what you have gained, but in who you are becoming. You are stronger than you were before, wiser than you once were, more aware, more grounded, and more prepared for what lies ahead. The struggles did not destroy you, the waiting did not break you, the delays did not define you. They helped shape you into the person you were meant to become. You have been chosen. You are being prepared. And the work God has started within you will not be abandoned halfway. Trust the process, trust the preparation, and trust that every step of your journey has been leading toward a purpose greater than you can currently see. Your story is not ending, it is unfolding.